Hi, welcome back to 6th grade math. Today we are talking about dividing a decimal by another decimal. So our goals for this video are to divide a decimal by a decimal and also solve word problems involving dividing decimals by decimals. Before we get started, let's remember how to divide a decimal by a whole number. So when you have a division problem, the first number is always what you are dividing, so it goes underneath your division bar. The second number is the divisor and it stays on the outside. Because we have a whole number on the outside, we're ready to begin, which means we can just put our decimal straight up and now we don't have to think about it. So 15 goes into 20 one time. 1 times 15, remember our steps: divide, multiply, subtract, bring down, and then start over. 1 times 15 is 15. I subtract 20 minus 15 is 5, and I bring down my 1. 15 into 51. I know that 15 times 3 is 45. So 3 times 15 is 45. And I'm left with 6. There's nothing to bring down, so what I can do is add a 0 under the division bar and keep going, because this is going to help me get to my final answer. 15 goes into 60 exactly 4 times. So I ran out of space, but 4 times 15 is 60. So when you subtract, sorry that it's over to the side, you get 0. So you are finished. Therefore, my final answer is 1.34. If you wanted to check your work, which is always a good idea, you could do 1.34 times 15, and you will get 20.1 or 20.10. Okay? So for dividing a decimal by a decimal, a minute ago we did a decimal by a whole number. We're going to have one extra step before we do what we did just a minute ago in our review. You have to rewrite the problem by moving the decimal point in both numbers, the same number of places, so that the divisor, that's the number on the outside, is a whole number. Okay? So for example, right here, to rewrite 2.4 and 15.024, we need to make 2.4 24. That means that you have to move that decimal one place to the right to make it a whole number. Notice that the 15 now becomes 150 because you move the inside decimal to the right as well. Okay? Why does this work? When you move a decimal, you are multiplying it by a power of 10. So if you move it once, you multiply it by 10. Same here. And so because you were multiplying the top and the bottom number by 10, you're still going to have you're going to get the same answer because you increase the numerator and the denominator by the same power of 10. Okay? To make it a little bit easier to explain, if I were to do 12 divided by 6, okay, that is 2. And also, if I were to multiply 12 by 10, I would get 120. If I multiplied 6 by 10, I'd get 60. 120 divided by 60 is still 2. So if you were changing the numerator and the denominator by the same factor, multiplying it by the same factor, that's not going to change your answer. The reason we want a whole number on the bottom is because we need to figure out how many wholes go into the numbers underneath, and it's a lot easier to divide when you are dividing with a whole number rather than a decimal. So here's another example. Let me move this over. There we go. Okay. Again, we want that 3 on the outside to be a whole number, so you see that we move it over one time. Therefore, we have to do the same thing underneath for the dividend as well. So our new problem becomes 18.6 divided by 3. Now that we have a whole number on the outside, the decimal goes straight up and you begin division. 18 divided by 3 is 6. That's exactly 18. And 6 divided by 3 is 2, which is exactly 6. So we zero out. So our answer is 6.2. And if you want to check, which is always a good idea, you can actually check the original problem. You can do 6.2 times 0.3 and you will get 1.86. That's 6, that's 18, and my decimal goes here because there are 2 numbers behind the decimal in the problem, so there should be 2 numbers behind the decimal in the answer. Here is practice problem 1. I'm going to go ahead and set it up here, and then I would love for you to pause the video and decide, okay, where is my decimal going to end up being in this problem, because we want the 1.9 to be a whole number. So go ahead and decide where do you think the decimal is going to end up, and then we'll talk about it. Okay, so this needs to move back 1 to make it 19. I'm going to rewrite it to the side, which means this decimal also has to back up, and the number underneath becomes 2,204. And I need a division. I like to make them different colors just so it's easy to see. Your decimal is here, so it will go straight up into your answer, and then we can begin. So 19 doesn't go into 2, but it does go into 22 one time. 1 times 19. I subtract, and I end up with 3. Bring down my next number. 19 goes into 30 one time. And that is 11, and I'm going to bring down my 4. Now, I'm not really sure how many 19s go into 114, so I got to come over here and kind of investigate. Let's start with 5. That is 45, and that is 9. Can I add another 19? That is actually perfect. So instead of it being times 5, I added another group of 19, so it goes into it 6 times. And that is actually exactly 114. So we zero out. Sorry, I ran out of space there. But my final answer is 116. And again, if you wanted to check, you would do 116 times 1.9, and you should get your 220.4. Here is practice problem 2. The total price of nachos for a group of people at the amusement park was $112.50. That's a lot of nachos. Each person paid $2.50 to have nachos. How many people were in the group? So we're taking the total amount that they paid in nachos, and we're dividing it by the price for one person. Okay? So when I set this up, this goes underneath. And 250 stays outside. Now, take a moment, pause the video, and decide where is your decimal going to go. Okay, did you see that this time you actually have to move it twice, which means you have to move it twice here as well. So this becomes 250 on the outside, and I did not change my color, but it becomes 11,250 on the inside, and then this goes straight up. So 250 does not go into 1, doesn't go into 11, doesn't go into 112. I need to figure out how many 250s go into 1125. I know that 250 times 4 would be 1,000, so let's try times 5. And that's too many. so we're going to go back down to 4. 4 times 250 is 1,000. And I'm left with 125, and I'm going to bring down my 0. And look right here. Perfect. 250 goes into 1250 5 times exactly, which means I zero out, and that means that 45 people were in the group. And again, to check, you could do 45 times 250, and that would give you $112.50. So before you leave, make sure you feel like you can divide a decimal by following those rules that we talked about, and also solve word problems the same way. Thanks for watching.